Okay, now let's bring in Douglass Sloan of the National Capital Strategy Group. He's also the first vice president of the NAACP's Washington branch. Douglass, thanks for being here, unfortunately, for this topic. Now, where to begin on gun violence? As a nation, the two sides are worlds apart, but we are starting to see some gun rights advocates sway. Do you think that's fair or overstating it?
I think that's fair. After the horrific shooting in Uvalde, Texas, which is the worst mass shooting at an elementary school in this nation's history, we are starting to see a shift in some of the outcomes and attitudes of some of these Second Amendment rights advocates. So it's incredibly important that we get these people on board, that we get them to understand the importance of common sense gun control, and that we're able to get some common sense gun control passed to better save and help preserve the safety of the citizens of this nation. So yes, I do think it's safe to say that we are seeing a shift in how some of these people are thinking.
You know, I think I come back to those two words, common sense, more often than perhaps any others. Now, help me explain to an international audience, because it's somewhat difficult to convey the way millions of people in the United States look at guns, a constitutional right.
Well, unfortunately, it seems to be a misinterpretation of the Second Amendment. That amendment was ratified in 1791 when the gun, the most dangerous gun in America, was a flintlock rifle that did not fire bullets, but rather took 2 minutes to load and fired something similar to buckshot. Bullets didn't come around to the 1830s, and many Second Amendment rights advocates seem to believe that our forefathers, the people, the framers that framed the Constitution of this country, implemented the Second Amendment into our Constitution as a right to stave off a tyrannical government, to protect themselves against tyranny from the government. But that, in fact, is not true. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16 of the U.S. Constitution clearly states the rules and parameters regarding said well-regulated militia that is in the Second Amendment. It is actually to preserve the Union, and the original clause was for the militia was to protect the country, to have a standing militia for the security of the country, because we had no armed forces. We had no Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. We had no police. So they put that in to preserve the Union and protect the Union, not as a way for every Tom, Dick, and Harry to have a firearm.
Not just a firearm, in many,
yeah,
an AR-15, you know, in many cases. And you
exactly.
know, and I saw a stat on the way to the set a moment ago: 52 people shot in Chicago over Memorial Day weekend, which didn't get the headlines. Nothing against Uvalde. It was a horrific incident, obviously, and has really been somewhat of a rallying effort for so many people. But the fact that guns kill so many people in the United States, what lawmakers and law enforcement have tried just isn't working. So why not do something different?
Well, let me cut to the chase here. This is a political issue, and it's funny when you bring politics up, people, at least in this country, politicians and people are quick to say, oh, it's not about politics, we just want to have better gun control laws. Well, Democrats want to pass gun control laws. Republicans, in the Senate particularly, prevent them from doing so. So, you know, you're saying try something different. Well, I mean, there's really not too much different to try in terms of trying to enact laws that will preserve the lives of U.S. citizens. We have some of this legislation that's passed in a fully Democratic House that's gone on, installed in the Senate, where Republicans have enough Republican members to stop any gun control laws from passing. You know, in terms of trying something different, we've tried everything we can. We have two Democrats in particular that do not want to or rather get rid of the filibuster, which is the rule that requires 60 votes for many laws to be passed in the Senate, instead of just a simple majority, 50 votes, which Democrats will be able to pass. We have two Democratic senators that don't want to do that, Senator Manchin from West Virginia and Senator Sinema from Arizona. And that is what is stopping us literally from saving lives and preserving the lives of children at this point.
And
We
Douglas,
have to work to get these laws passed. We have to work to try to get Republicans to understand that we need common sense gun control legislation to help save lives.
there was a ban on semi-automatic weapons, but once that lapsed, man, sales took off of this weapon. And I hear the same thing everywhere. And I tragically have covered so many school shootings. It breaks your heart. What we hear again and again, the government is trying to take our guns. And that just isn't true.
It's not true at all. It's crazy. Yes, we did have an assault rifle ban in 1994. Bill Clinton and Democrats passed. Unfortunately, there was a sunset provision on that law. And in 2004, with George Bush and the Republican Congress, they allowed it to lapse. And then, yeah, sales took off, and so did mass shootings. We had suddenly had an incredible increase of mass shootings in the United States of America once that ban was lifted. So, I go back to the analogy that I've heard used many times since Uvalde. If you have a child, you have two children, and one child hits the other one with a stick, you blame the child that hit the other child with a stick, but you also take that stick away. It's twofold. Republicans seem to say, oh, it's all mental health, mental health. No, it's mental health and high proliferation of weapons. They do not seem to understand that the United States does not have an inordinately high number of people with mental health problems or mental health issues. We are not an outlier for mental health, but we are an outlier for unfettered access to firearms, loose gun laws. That is the problem that we have to address.